there's going to eventually be an implosion or a big meltdown. There's going to be an implosion where 3 or 4, or maybe even a half a dozen of these mega budgeted movies are going to go crashing into the ground, and that's going to change the paradigm again.
And then what does the world look like after that?
Well, it's like 2008.
So that was Steven Spielberg getting some gloom, throwing some predictive gloom at the industry. I believe that was in 2012.
He's quite optimistic about the whole thing falling apart.
Well, I think everybody's cynical, aren't they?
Yeah, well, we all want to think that it's all going to come crashing down.
We feel like we are in on the secret, I think, if we're cynical and nihilistic. And by the way, we're going to get more into that. We also have a correspondent piece on that from it's our first correspondent piece of the show. This show, by the way, is 5 Quadrant, the movie business podcast from Father Son Productions. I'm Tom Knobloch.
And I'm Chris Vega.
And we actually have quite a lot that we're going to get through because it's not just us now. It's usually just us, and it's not just us.
We have other people to talk to.
Well, not to talk to, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
to talk.
There's other people talking. Yes, and we also have some Spielberg. I'm going to actually play that whole clip. It's Spielberg and Lucas talking about everything, but we will get to that in due time. So you're going to have to hold. Everyone should just hold their horses on that because we have some other things that we have
to keep them held.
This week we watched the debate. I guess it'll be last week. So we watched the first presidential.
We're like
debate.
the last people to talk about the debate.
We are, but the problem with the Monday show and the Monday debate is we couldn't talk about it as it happened. But we watched it, and it was everything you'd kind of expect. I don't think either of us is hugely enthusiastic about either candidate, but we still watch, and we're still going to vote for at least one of them. I know you have some.
Speaking of things crashing down, it was a fun train wreck to watch.
Is. I think it's. Is there anything better as a metaphor for what Spielberg is talking about, and kind of even just what we were talking about last week with the box office, than a presidential election where we don't really like any of the candidates, and we feel compelled to continue to support them to some extent, to watch them. We do want one to be president because it's better than the other ones. Yeah. But isn't that? I mean, that's kind of indicative of so many of.
That's a terrible reason.
That's culture right now, isn't it? It's like I don't really like any of these. Yeah. But for some reason, I'm going to keep supporting them enough.
Worst.
Yeah, I'm going to keep them because I mean. I think that most people agree that they don't really like Top 40's music, but they listen to the Top 40 stations and they hear it everywhere.
Well, you don't have a choice. You turn on the radio, that's what you have. There's one not pop station.
You can listen to the classic stations that play the same 25 songs.
The Top 40 from 40 years ago. And then
and I think books. Nobody likes Dean Koontz. They don't really like James Patterson, but they'll buy the books every year because they have 3 books that are out every year. Why is it that people are so into this? It's there.
Well, other people know it, so they can get it, and then other people know it too, even if they haven't read it.
It's brand recognition somehow, but we don't like the brands.
No.
Why do we?
I think we're a little bit more on the contrarian side of things, than other people.
I think that we are more explicit in that sentiment, but I think that even with these cinematic universes, people are like, I didn't really like Man of Steel, I didn't really like Batman vs. Superman, I didn't really like Suicide Squad, but I'm going to keep watching those movies because I think they might get good at some point.
Yes, because you've grown up with it, and you have this nostalgia to where
Clinton and Trump.
It was good to you at one point, and so you're hoping that now, even through your jaded, cynical adult eyes, that you can still find some pleasure in it, but you can't, so you keep coming back, and it's just
But we keep going back.
It's an addict cycle, except it's like superheroes.
Yes, I think we have a cultural addict cycle.
Yeah,
and I don't know that that's good, and I think that that's part of why we have a culture that's mainly apathetic. It's curiosity. It's this idea we like to watch things just to be able to talk about them, not because we actually like them.
Yeah.
And I think that's about everything is that now, and I don't get it. I don't get why we let that happen.
We let it get too popular.
It's just what you're saying. Though I think we're addicted to the same things because I think we know those things. It's like when they bring back old TV shows. A lot of times nobody really likes him, but they continue to watch him. Does anybody really like Fuller House?
What just came out again? Westworld. There's a Westworld TV show that just started.
That's at least a reimagining, so I will let that slide. But it's J.J. Abrams, so of course it's got to be a reboot of something that he saw when he was a kid, because what else does J.J. Abrams do? And people love that, though.
I don't know.
He gets Star Wars because he does that. I mean... And, I think it's working in some sense, but it's not in others. You can't really call this presidential cycle successful, I don't think.
No.
People are not responding in the way that either candidate would really hope for, I don't think, at least in a traditional political sense. And then I think you also see, especially with movies right now, you don't have much enthusiasm for them.
No. I remember. I don't know. I feel like I don't see people lining up outside the theater for 3 days to go see a movie anymore.
Especially, like this year, you've had a lot of big movies. Basically, first of all, you've had a ton of big movies. Second of all, you have not had a lot of big movies that people cared about or saw.
Or when they do come out, everyone realizes that it sucked and that they shouldn't have ridden on the hype.
Yeah, well, it's kind of just this expectation that because it is a known brand, people will continue to see it. And you see there's some examples where it's kind of falling apart. Like that third Star Trek movie.
Everyone gave up on that one.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Everyone's just like,
yeah.
Well, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then you had even that Divergent series, because that was like the piggybacking off of the Hunger Games, kind of the female-led dystopian revolution sort of story. And the fourth one is being restructured as the pilot to a TV show. The fourth movie.
I thought they were done.
No, they split. Of course, they split the finale into two.
Yeah.
Part 3, which was really part 1 of the finale, didn't really do that well. So now they're restructuring it into a TV show.
It's the end of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it's just this. It's like the lines are so blurred that they can actually take a movie that now they're sure isn't going to make money, and they're going to pretend, oh no, that wasn't even part.
You should have realized it wasn't going to make money after like the first what was it, 3 or 4?
I think the first one did pretty well.
Okay,
and then they were like, all right, let's film all of them now.
Yeah,
and then the second one was like, then the third one was, and then now they're like, I don't even want to see what the fourth one's going to be, so let's just turn it into TV.
I think everyone's kind of hopefully realizing that these young adult novels work best as a book, and then this, I feel like the whole kid against the world thing doesn't always translate too well.
That's exactly the same genre, though, I think, where people are like, everyone is going to say for the next 10 years, well, it's not as good as the Hunger Games or whatever the benchmark was that got them into it, and that's just going to be like people, because that was so successful, we're going to continue to see that exact same brand. It's
always depressing. They're like, oh man, I'm so excited to go see the Hunger Games. I'm like,
I feel like most people weren't even that excited. They're like, really? It's not. The books are good. I don't really like the movies. Let's go see the fourth one.
Yeah, the fourth one, which is the second part of the third book.
Exactly. Because you have to turn every finale into a two-parter, which is a TV thing. That's what you do with TV finales.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, okay.
And it's blending it all. You have streaming services. It's a weird time to be looking at movies, to be in movies, to do like any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And basically the theme of today's show is maybe Spielberg was right.
Can we hope? Was it good if he's right? I mean, it's kind of like the terrible thing to ask.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to play the full clip of Spielberg and Lucas giving this talk where they talk about what are their predictions for what the studio system is going to look like years from now. And we're going to assume that now is years from when they were saying it. So let's just assume, how do we judge what they're predicting based on right now?
Okay.
So we're going to do that. Yes. We're going to come back. After that, we're going to go to our first break. We're going to come back. Chris is going to go through the box office numbers. We'll go through some notable headlines. Okay. And then we have a correspondent piece looking more into the studio system and specifically the state of Paramount Pictures right now, given Spielberg's content predictions, whatever the word is, given the content of Spielberg.
I think it's just predictions.
Predictions. Let's stick with predictions. So we'll be back. This is Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. I don't think they need introductions.
That's a great combo.
You know who they are. You know who they are and what they stand for.
There's going to eventually be an implosion or a big meltdown. There's going to be an implosion where 3 or 4, or maybe even a half a dozen of these mega budgeted movies are going to go crashing into the ground, and that's going to change the paradigm again.
And then what does the world look like after that?
Well, like 2008. We will come back from it. That's what I mean.
What you're going to end up with is fewer theaters, bigger theaters, with a lot of nice things. Going to the movies, it's going to cost you $50, maybe $100, maybe $150.
Like Broadway costs today.
Yeah, it's like Broadway or going to a football game. It's going to be an expensive thing. The movies are going to be these big ticket items because people will still take their chances, and they will sit in the theaters for a year, just like a Broadway show does, and that's going to be what we call the movie business. But everything else is going to look more like cable television on TiVo, which is there's great programming, usually more interesting than what you're going to see in the movie theater, and you can get it whenever you want, and it's going to be niche marketed, which means, you can really take chances and do things if you can figure there's a small group of people that will kind of react to this. And then it's really a matter of marketing, which is the biggest issue, is just making sure that people know you're there. But otherwise, and of course with the internet, the way all the future of communications and everything is, there's a whole process for doing that now. So it's basically going to be what used to be the movie business, which I include as television and movies. It was the movie, but now it's going to be the television business, which actually has nothing to do with television anymore.
Content business.
It's not going to have cable or broadcast. It's going to be the internet television. Mm-hmm. And that's storytelling. It's there's no difference between movies and television. There's no difference at all. Except in a lot of cases, television is much better than movies.
Well, because eventually movies go on television, so it's all the same after.
Quality,
even the window is so narrow. Movies go on television in hotels within 2 weeks of their initial theatrical runs. It used to be, when I first started making movies, it was really cool. My movie stayed in theaters for 1 year. If it was a hit, it was a year long. Raiders was in theaters for a year. E.T. was in theaters for a year and 4 months. And I can't believe that I can actually remember those days. That was an amazing situation back then. But now, there's going to be eventually day and date with movies, and eventually there's going to be a price variance for you're going to have to pay $25 to see the next Iron Man, and you're probably only going to have to pay $7 to see Lincoln. I mean, there's going to be that is going to be in our future as well.
I think eventually the Lincolns are going to go away and they're going to be on television.
Well, and mine almost was.
You're not, well, but I mean
this close.
But that's
ask HBO this close.
But you're going to have homes with giant televisions that are, in terms of the ratio of person to screen is going to be the same.
Right.
But it's just you can't. I mean, like now I'm going into, making my own personal films, but I know I can't release them. This is why. Well, because if I make a movie for $1 million, it's still going to cost me $10 or $15 million to market it. Yeah. I'm not going to spend 15. I know I'm going to lose money at it because nobody's going to want to see the movie anyway. So why would I spend another $15 million on something?
We got you covered.
Yeah, on something that's Well, I don't see you running out to go see Tetro or anything, or Youth Without Youth. But the thing is, the issue is that you're going to be able to make these movies, and eventually. You can put them on the internet and everything, but you're not going to make any money at it. So the monetizing issue is still a big deal, and you have to be able to see where your market is. I mean, I already know I'm making it for a minuscule market, and that's why I'm doing it, because I don't have to worry about if it's entertaining or if it's anything, and it's my choice. But at the same time, people are going to be able to have options, and those movies are, unfortunately, the options for interesting movies are going to be on television, or as we know, or in the home. Let's not say television, say in the home. But I defy people who live in a hole or something. You can take some of the best cable shows, and you can take some of the best movies, and you can put them on the screen together, and nobody can tell the difference.
Five Quadrant is brought to you by the Movies and Stuff YouTube channel, run by movie lovers Dan and Abe, who chat about the films they love and are often joined by actors, writers, and other people involved in making those movies. They've got a couple of recent interviews with people like Andrew Kevin Walker, Robert Engels, and Nicholas Winding Refn. You can watch their live-streamed interviews, reviews, roundtables, and panel debates every week by heading over to youtube.com/moviesandstuff. Subscribe today. Quad 2.
Welcome to Quad 2.
Good day and welcome to Quad 2. We've got the box office.
Yes, we're going to do that now?
I think it's box office time. That's what I say.
Quad 2 is box office.
You know what I always say?
The box quad.
Sometimes it's time for the box office, members.
Well, I don't remember if you remember my predictions last week, but...
the lights just turned off.
Out of nowhere. There they go. Okay, they're on like a little We're sitting too still.
So your predictions last week, if I recall correctly, were...
I don't think they're in this notebook.
You had Deepwater Horizon at 30 million?
Yes.
And...
If we bump all the
Miss Peregrine's
actually, if we
Home
switch
for
the numbers
Peculiar-
around, I think I'm right.
So you had that at 30 million. You had Peregrine at either 25 or 20. I don't remember.
I think it was 20.
20 million, and then 15 for Magnificent Seven in its second week.
Magnificent Seven, I was right. That's at number 3 with $15 million. 15.7.
Good job.
I know, I was really close.
Good work.
Deepwater Horizon actually ended up at number 2.
Let's start at number 1 because this is gonna get confusing.
Okay.
Number 1.
Okay, sorry. Number 1 was Miss
Harrigan.
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar
Why
Children.
is Miss Harrigan funny?
I don't know. It's probably not
Miss
funny.
Harrigan.
But that one ended up with $28.5 million, not too far away from.
That's pretty good for Burton, isn't it? What was the budget on that?
That budget. Let me see.
That Harrigan budget.
That budget, $110 million. So no, it's not that great so far.
$110 million. That's.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I feel like Burton's budgets are always $100 million.
It's actually like halfway up the list on his opening gross. Yeah, opening weekend gross at $28.5 million.
That's number 8.
Alice in Wonderland got $115 million on their opening weekend.
The thing with Alice in Wonderland, I think, primarily was that was one of the first big 3D releases after Avatar.
Oh, okay.
And so I think
it was
you
right
had
in
that
that
craze.
3D train.
Yeah, I attribute that $1 billion gross for that to
his second biggest opening was the 2001 version of Planet of the Apes. Which,
that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Imagine how many movies he's been passionate about and actually had a lot of money to work with.
Oh, those ones are all at the bottom. Big Fish is down there. Like that's like a third, like second or third, only to Edward Scissorhands.
Ed Wood at the bottom.
Never seen Ed Wood.
That's people like that one.
Good. Oh, really? It doesn't look like it.
That's well, the people just saw it. Nobody saw it. You know, the thing is though, nobody likes Planet of the Apes.
No, but
everybody saw it.
My favorite part about this whole thing was I was playing with all the buttons, and if you adjust for inflation, the highest grossing movie he's ever made was Batman.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Actually, that was very iconic.
Oh man,
huge.
Still,
people love
that. It's great. I mean,
so I made $545 million if it was adjusted for inflation.
Yeah,
today.
$251 million at the time. But still,
which is actually, I want to say, higher than the Christopher Nolan movies even.
Oh dang! I don't know. Was it? I mean, those would still be slightly adjusted too, because those were in
Dark Knight might be a little higher, but right around there.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, we had number 1, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children,
$28 million. So $28 million on a $110 million budget. If that holds well, they might be fine. Otherwise, they might lose a little bit. And I think that's a series. It's a book series.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's back on this whole young adult novel.
Yeah,
not novel. Series.
Well, this is my understanding. This is like the more young adulty X-Men sort of thing. It's like the more fantasy type.
That's the vibe I got from like
School for Gifted Youngsters kind of thing. Yeah. And presumably they do want this to turn into a series.
Yeah, I mean, and it probably will, whether it does well or not.
We'll see.
Kind of with number 2, Deepwater Horizon, $20.5 million.
That's got to be a big disappointment.
That is, yeah. I thought that one was going to be one of those movies everyone goes to go see because big crisis. Everyone goes sees the movies. About
and that's $110 million as well.
Yeah, another $110 million budget.
$20 million on a $110 million budget is not. I mean, even with a good hold, that's going to be rough to make that much back. Because you're gonna want to make $250 million just to break even on that thing.
Magnificent Seven isn't doing too great. They got $15.7 million, and they're only at $61 million on the $90 million budget.
Yeah, that's not great. They'll do okay probably, but that'll probably be a mild loss. The thing is, I think going back to even just what Lucas and Spielberg were saying, these are big movies. That's a lot of big movies, and there's just not. People aren't going to see that many. There's not that much money going around.
Yeah, no, people aren't paying for those anymore.
Okay.
And, Storks is number 4. They made $13.8 million this week.
Cume's up to $40 million.
Yeah,
that just can't be that exciting either for them.
Sully is still up here, number 5. They got $8.4 million. Sully is apparently doing looks like the best out of most of the movies I see on here.
$105
million, yeah.
On a $60 million budget. Yeah, that's going to be profitable.
Good job, Clint.
For Clint and Tom Hanks taking a story that everybody knows that isn't really much of a story and making that much money.
I think it's just Tom Hanks. I mean, Tom Hanks brings people into the theaters, though. I mean, everyone loves Tom Hanks.
Well, even American Sniper for Eastwood was huge.
I didn't know that was him.
That was him.
I didn't see that one. That looked bad.
I didn't. Yeah,
I think my favorite was
terrible.
I saw a clip, and it's whoever the lead guy is with the baby. Yeah. It's like very clearly just like a doll. Masterminds is number 6. They were like my bottom of the barrel. Like
you did have that right around there, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I put them at number 4.
What was your number on that one? Do you remember?
I don't think I gave a number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just had me. That was just kind of like, Masterminds.
Well, Masterminds, I think, was made like 2 or 3 years ago, but then Relativity had gone out of business, and so they didn't have anywhere to put it. And so it got picked up, I don't know, or Relativity must have come back because it looks like they're still listed as the distributor on there. So I don't know.
Maybe it's the bottom or something.
Yeah, and so that one looked like a movie that nobody was expecting to make that much money.
It looks bad.
What's the budget on that? Do we
it doesn't even say on here.
We don't have one on Box Office Mojo?
No.
Interesting. Okay. I can't imagine it's that much, though. So
probably not.
I don't think it'll really make money, but it's probably not much of a loss.
I feel like Zach Galifianakis was a one-hit wonder. He had his one kind of okay role in The Hangover, then he kind of just like fell off after that.
Well, he was even, by the time Hangover 2 comes around, he was already really annoying.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I mean, halfway through The Hangover, you kind of started getting sick of him.
Hangover 1, I think it kind of worked because it was your first real exposure to him. But then spending another hour and a half with him, I hated Hangover 2, and I never saw the third one.
Yeah, I think I saw like the first half of the third one. It was one of those.
Was it bad?
Yeah, it was really bad. Number 7, we've got The Queen of Katwe.
That's a chess movie, I believe.
Interesting. Okay.
That's one of these inspirational, worldly, let's get some Africans or Indians in it Disney movies.
Okay. Oh, it's a Disney movie.
Yeah. And that's...
Don't Breathe is still hanging on. They're at number 8.
And they're at $84 million on a $10 million budget. So, yeah, good job to them.
Yeah,
I'm impressed by that.
See? I think a lot of the people who still go to movies in the theater, like horror, I feel like is a lot better in a big, dark room on a giant screen.
But you have to convince the audience that it's worth it, which... I guess the thing that I would point to is you look at Don't Breathe, which... I probably didn't anticipate even being around at this point. They probably were happy if they got like to that $30 to $40 million range, and that was only going to happen with either a huge opening or word of mouth being good. And the way that a horror movie sticks around is definitely just word of mouth. People hear that it's good. Well, and the thing to point to is look at Blair Witch down there at number 12.
Yeah.
It's dropped off.
Even they made 4 times their budget. They're at $20 million on a $5 million budget.
They're at $20 million, but they didn't make $80 million.
No, they did not.
So... You can see one is successful by just like normal movie standards, and one is successful by micro budget horror movie standards. Yeah. And it's interesting to see the difference there.
Well, I think with Don't Breathe, they still had that. You know, everyone was like, "Oh, you know, the remake of Evil Dead was all right." You know, so they must. Yeah. I mean, you know, for a new horror movie,
it was intense.
It was definitely one of the better newer horror movies that I've seen. Like, I can't really think of much else off the top of my head between then and now.
Honestly, yeah, it was more memorable than plenty other ones that I have seen.
Number 9, we got Bridget Jones's Baby.
Bridget Jones.
$20 million for them.
That's the Cume.
Yeah, Cume. Sorry, $2.3 million this last weekend. Weekend. I think it's a week.
Yeah, well, weekend is what we're looking at these numbers.
Oh, okay, it's just the weekend. All right. Snowden. Next, number 10.
Hanging in there at number 10. Yeah. What are they at total?
He refuses to go pay $18.7 million out of a $40 million budget.
So. God, who gives Oliver Stone $40 million for an Edward Snowden movie?
I'm wondering where all these millions of dollars are going that just don't...
Paychecks.
Yeah.
It's not on screen with a lot of these.
Disappears.
Well, like, okay, you look at something like $10 for Don't Breathe. I think Don't Breathe is primarily in a house. Is where most of it's set. And so...
Okay.
The money probably is all basically on screen with a decent salary for everybody involved.
Getting thrown at most of like either the actors, actresses, or special effects crews. Suicide Squad is still somehow on here. They made $1.9 million last week.
That's off the top 10, though, so you don't even have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Sorry, I guess you're right. For some reason, I was thinking we went farther. But yeah, no, I just want to point out that somehow they made $320 million, and it's insane.
Does anybody like that movie?
No, nobody liked it, from what I could tell.
And everyone continues to go to it.
People who were like, "Oh my god, guys, Suicide Squad's coming out in a week. Let's all go see the movie." And then all of a sudden it comes out, and everyone's like, "Wow, this sucks." You know,
people seem to enjoy the trailers.
Well, didn't they give it to the people who made the trailers, and it still sucked? Like that was like the whole thing.
I don't know for sure how true.
That was what I had heard. Was that everyone's like, "Oh man, these trailers are awesome." So the studio's like, "Yeah, let's give it to the people who made the trailers."
Can I be honest with you? That's one of the funniest stories. This idea that the studio has so much faith in the reaction of the trailer and so little faith in the person that they hired to write and direct the movie that they're like, trailer company, just take it. Make something like that.
That's the worst part, though, is that this is the one time they decided to trust the little guy in it. I mean, sure, they made $320 million off it, but I mean, everyone hated the movie. Well, this is why they don't give the money to the small guys anymore. They're like, oh yeah, give it to the little trailer company. But
the trailer company doesn't make movies.
No, it doesn't. No, they don't. I mean, but it's still, they're gonna see that as
DC seems to be they're freaking out. They're like, I don't know how to make people like these movies.
Which I feel like they'd be fine if they just like settle down a little bit. They seem to just keep throwing money at all this stuff, and they're not really thinking about it.
But they're making money.
Yeah, a lot.
They're freaking out, but I don't know that they even should be.
How does that compare to any of the new Marvel offerings? I mean, $300-some million grossing. That's not bad.
Yeah, I'm sure Civil War was over 300 because it's people. Well, I mean, Civil War is kind of Avengers 2.5 or like the Avengers that went over 400 million.
Yeah, 400 million. Still, that's not. I mean, that's an $80 million difference.
What's worldwide on that one?
Ooh, I can only imagine.
Huge. 1,152 million. That's big. It's not. I don't even think that's Iron Man 4 big, though, is it?
That made more foreign. Iron Man, what was it?
Iron Man 3, sorry. I don't think it's Iron Man 3. I don't know how many of these things there are. Did Iron Man 3
do great over?
Iron Man 3, I think, was 1.3 billion. And then if you scroll down...
Yeah, 1.2 billion,
yeah. So, okay, I don't know. Those ones, those are a lot of money. But, okay, but what I'm thinking is here... DC, nobody likes the movies, and they all seem to be in that $700 to $900 million range,
which is a pretty good range. I mean, that's a lot.
Not a lot of franchises can consistently hit that mark. So
especially
maybe,
without being good.
Yeah, with everyone hating it, because there's hype, but it's not even positive hype anymore. I think after Batman vs Superman, everyone's like, yeah, whatever.
Well, I think everyone kind of like saw Batman vs Superman sucks and like, well, maybe Suicide Squad will be good, and then that tanked.
Yes.
And now they're going to be like, well, maybe this next movie will be good.
That was somehow they continue to fall for that, and I don't understand it, because I think that was even the reaction after Man of Steel wasn't very good, but they're going to have Batman in the next one. And they're like, yeah, the Batman part wasn't so good, but they're going to have the Joker in the next one. And they're like, yeah, well, but Wonder Woman was okay. And then they're like, oh yeah, but it's Justice League, so they're going to have some new stuff. How long can you pull that off?
We're going to see. We're going to find out, I guess, and we'll be here.
Warner Brothers, I think, has all of its eggs in that basket. Yeah. So.
Was that their only basket, though?
Right now, it pretty much is.
Okay.
They're not really. They ousted Jeff Robinov from running it, and they got this. They have a guy who basically Kevin Sugihara, who primarily has done. He's not really a movie guy. Essentially, he's a business guy. He's like branding. A lot of like merchandising kind of stuff, and so that's the mentality that he's bringing to Warner Brothers right now, which is manifesting in the form of the DC universe.
Yes,
and
which that's totally just
critically it's not
the
working.
Star Wars Avengers, buy something we can make toys off of, and make stuff we can make toys off of.
Because Jeff Robinov and before him Alan Horn ran Warner Brothers, and they ran it primarily. I mean, it wasn't. I mean. It's dishonest probably to say it was really like all artist focused, because clearly they were big movies, they wanted to make money off of them, but it was much more of a lot of artists could come in there, a lot of directors could have a lot more control, and they'd work with the vision of the directors within the studio system. Now it's much more of we have these products that we know are going to work because they're part of this brand and they're part of this franchise.
This is what the focus group told us will be best, and so we're going to do that.
A lot of people were skeptical when Robinov got kicked out so they could go this route. And from a critical standpoint, it looks like they had reason to be, because they've had a lot of flops outside of this. Because some of their other big ones were like Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, no.
Which the story there, and I don't know if it's completely verified, is that the Wachowskis actually wouldn't talk to Warner Brothers, and they just kept spending more and more money, and it got ballooned. The budget ballooned.
I feel like they were just afraid
million.
to like show it. It's like when you're afraid to show your homework to the
teacher, but they keep spending more and more.
Bad, and it's just like I just need another week to work on it. I swear.
That's exactly what it was. You get that extension for no reason. But in this case, it was actually tens of millions of dollars in an extension. And it did not pay off at all, because not that many people wanted to watch Elf Channing Tatum, I think.
Really? You didn't want to see that?
I didn't. Did you see it?
No, I did not.
Yeah, nobody did. Nobody wanted to see
I think like my
that.
little sister got really excited for it, went to see it, and I don't know if she liked it. Yeah, $176 million budget. Dang.
And I'm pretty sure that's not where they started. Ooh. And it made how much?
They made a couple million off of it total.
No, they did not. Not with theater splits.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, $47.3 million domestic.
You can count on them making about $90 million off that.
Still, I mean, if someone offered you $90 million, be like, yeah.
When you just spent almost $200 million plus marketing.
Did they not? Sean Bean was in it. I mean, come on, it couldn't have been that bad.
I mean, come on. So okay. Yeah, I just can't even tell you what Warner Brothers is up to these days.
I mean, who knows?
So what are our releases?
Speaking of these days, do we have any? You want my next estimates or my next?
Well, I'm just curious. What are the movies for next week? And then I'll go through some headlines that caught my eye.
Let's see next week.
Birth of the Nation.
Yeah, Birth of a Nation. The Girl on the Train. I thought they had already come out, but I guess I was wrong.
Girl on the Train looks pretty good, I think. I'll see that
one. It's based off a book, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's definitely shamelessly capitalizing on the Gone Girl.
Well, that's funny, because I was just going to say that. Yeah. I mean, I finally finished that, by the way.
How was it?
It's good. Yeah. I think you said Dark Places is a bad ending and failed to wrap things up, but I think the ending in Gone Girl, like that last chapter, is the best part.
I think that's partially why I think that, even without having read the book, but having seen the movie and read her other books, it seems like that was the story where things really clicked for her, and she knew, here's how to tie it all together really well.
The whole, like, the last few, like, I want to say chapters, but they're kind of like diary entries for Amy's side, and then just, like first person for Nick. But that's totally worth it just for like those last few entries there.
The movie had a beautiful ending.
Oh yeah, well the book goes on a little bit farther than the movie does, but it's still like it's very tense the whole time, and you're just like, oh god, what's gonna happen. And that's good. It doesn't happen very often.
I don't know if Girl on the Train will be as good as the Gone Girl movie, but
I don't know.
I'm intrigued. I think it looks fun. I haven't really seen a movie in a while, so I just it'd be fun to go watch something at this point.
I was digging through my DVD collection. I watched Strange Brew the other day because I couldn't find anything new to watch. And What else have we got? A bunch of movies.
What is middle school? I've never heard of that one.
The Worst Years of My Life, brought to you by Lionsgate.
You know, now that we do an actual informative movie podcast, I realize how disconnected I am from the movies that are out because
The Greasy Strangler is coming out, and I saw a trailer for that.
Oh
Looks
God,
awful.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I don't understand how it's a thing. Is that who? Where are they? Tim and Eric though?
Is it?
I think so. I mean, it sounds like something they'd do. Phantasm Remastered's coming out.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of smaller ones that people aren't going to care. Well, Girl on the Train's going to be the big one, I think, that week. But I'll wait for you because you'll do your predictions in a minute here. So let's switch gears. Let's go to some headlines that I've found. So, well, they're not even just headlines. I say headlines like I'm going to read the headlines. But no, some stories are, first off, as we're kind of talking about the consistent blurring of TV and movies into just this content production or whatever it is that we're saying. Yeah. The FCC has voting on a proposal that is going to basically get rid of this need to rent a cable box and satellite setup.
I heard about this.
And instead it looks like it's going to create a free app in its place that you could be able to get into. And so they're kind of working on that. It looks like it's still sort of a work in progress. But I thought that's interesting, and that does seem progressive. And it's a kind of a new licensing plan that would have to come out of that.
Well, and it's about time, too. I mean, pretty much every other, you want to say cable TV type thing. Like, HBO has a streaming app. You get that for free with a subscription anyways. You don't need to buy a box to watch HBO.
I'd rather get an app for the few channels I'm interested in than even a cable plan at this point.
Oh, yeah. Well,
some kind of bulk setup
that's what they're resisting, is because they can't make money unless they're forcing you to pay for all this stuff that you don't want.
I hope that this is the start of something that breaks up that system. We got to break up.
It's really sad that we need legislation to get stuff like this to happen.
We got to break up the cable plans.
Yeah.
Number 2 that I have here is money. So Christopher Nolan has had a ridiculously successful career, I would say, starting with Following, which I think he made for $7,000.
I watched that; it was great.
That's actually it's a fun movie.
It is great.
Memento, which was I think $1 million, maybe $2 million, pretty small. Yeah. Then he gets bumped up to like a $40 million budget for Insomnia. Then he gets Batman Begins. Then he gets The Prestige. Then Dark Knight. Then Inception. Then Dark Knight Rises. Then Interstellar. And now he's got Dunkirk, which is his World War II epic. Okay. And he is so valuable to the studios that Warner Brothers is throwing $20 million at him, plus 20% of whatever the film ends up grossing at the box office, just to direct this movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
I want that job.
I assume we're looking at north of $200 million budget for this.
Still, could you imagine even just getting $20 million up front? Just like, this is your paycheck, just yours. This isn't even like,
well,
not even part of the budget.
So what I ended up doing a little bit of digging because I was thinking. So my understanding was the only other time that a director has ever gotten that much up front for that kind of movie was King Kong. Peter Jackson got $20 million to direct King Kong, but the tragic irony that I love is King Kong, part of the contract was basically if you go over budget, though, you have to pay because we're not going to give you more of the budget than the $20 million on top of everything else. They ended up going, here, let me look at the figure here, $32 million over budget.
Oh, no.
So he's out $12 million for getting the most money to ever direct a movie. And I think he did have some back end on that as well. But
he must have done a little bit of math to figure out if he's like, I'm sure I can make at least $12 million back from whatever percentage cut he was getting.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine. But I just love this idea that it's the biggest paycheck ever, and he ends up $12 million in debt to the studio, essentially, for it.
So it's almost like the smallest paycheck ever, a negative paycheck in a way.
It was a negative paycheck what that started as the biggest paycheck. And I'm actually hoping that we'll get a correspondent piece on the whole King Kong story, because there's something weird with... I don't know if you recall, but when Peter Jackson was directing Lord of the Rings, he was a large, portly fellow.
Yes.
And when he directed King Kong, he lost like 200 pounds. And stories go that he was so exhausted on set that he had to bring in a rotation of other directors to direct during the day. Like Bryan Singer came in to help direct the movie because he was too tired to actually do it. And so I don't know the whole story, and I'd love to hear why, for getting the highest paycheck ever for a dream project where he essentially can control everything he wants up to a certain monetary number. Yeah. Why is it that he can't stay awake on set and he's losing all this weight? What's happening
sure,
there?
He pretty much doesn't do everything.
There's a story.
They're probably just like, we already gave you $20 million. Figure it out.
Well, they gave him $20 million and then also $175 million. I guess it would be $155 million for everything else.
Still, that's.
There's some story there that's interesting, and I don't know what it is.
I don't know. Maybe.
So some correspondent, if you're listening to this, figure that out.
Tell
and send
us
it to
what's
us.
going on.
Tell us what's happening.
If you know Peter.
And then, so as far as passion projects go, we actually have a couple of interesting stories that go along with that. I don't know if you've heard anything about Martin Scorsese's new movie Silence. Have you heard anything about it? So essentially, for 20 years, maybe even longer than that, I think since like 25, 26 years, since like 1990, Scorsese has wanted to direct an adaptation of Shusaku Endo's novel Silence, which is about Jesuit missionaries in Japan at the time where Japan was basically killing Christians for coming over because Christianity was outlawed. And it's a classic Japanese novel. It's really good. And I thought it's very much, I would say it's pretty similar to the trajectory of The Last Temptation of Christ, which was his other big religious epic, that and Kundun. And so essentially the thing is, though, with like Last Temptation of Christ, I think people liked it, but it didn't make enough that everyone's like, yes, please give us a much more expensive kind of story like that.
We want more Jesus, you know?
And so he originally, I think at one point, he had a cast of Benicio del Toro, Gabriel Garcia Bernal, and Daniel Day-Lewis all lined up to be in this movie. Okay. Now it's Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, and Liam Neeson, which is not as exciting up front, but
Liam Neeson's okay. No,
I think Andrew Garfield is a very good actor.
Yeah,
I have to say.
Spider-Man?
I never saw those, but did you ever see...
So that doesn't mean it's not Spider-Man, though. You'd be like, I didn't see him in those. So, you know.
Are we getting Spider-Man, or are we getting the real actor here?
What else has he been in that's worth watching?
Never Let Me Go, Social Network.
I didn't know he was in Social Network. Interesting.
He plays Eduardo.
I bought that, actually.
It's very good.
I snagged it on like the $1 rack at like half-price books, something like that.
That's worth it.
I was like, heck yeah.
DVD or Blu-ray?
DVD, but it's like it's a snazzy like collector's edition.
Fincher gets his cool DVDs.
Yeah. He does, but I mean, he probably puts that in the deal, though. Needs a cool box.
Cool DVD right. Or no deal.
Or $20 million up front.
Well, I think, speaking of big director paydays and David Fincher, that Steve Jobs movie that nobody saw.
Which one?
Like there were three. There were three in
the
one
Michael
year. Fassbender Steve Jobs movie that nobody saw was
really
once going to be a Christian Bale Steve Jobs movie that nobody was going to see. That was going to be directed by
Christian Bale is
David Fincher, but David Fincher said, "Give me $10 million and I'll direct this movie." And I think basically what he's saying was, his leverage was basically, look what I did with the Facebook movie. You had a movie that was literally about Facebook, and I made it into this huge, completely popular, really well-regarded, intense movie.
Yeah.
Let me take Steve Jobs and do the same thing. Social Network went on to make, $96 million? And
not bad for a movie
domestically. What did they make worldwide?
Oh, let's find out.
$224 million for a Facebook movie is pretty good.
$40 million budget, too.
So he says, give me $10 million, I'll direct your Steve Jobs movie. Here's Christian Bale. And they say, nah, it's a little expensive. So he says, all right, I'm taking Bale with me then. So he walks out.
With Bale.
With Bale.
He picks him up and goes.
He picks up Bale. He's like, come on, Christian, come on, get out of here. We have to go. He's
Don't you talk to me or my son ever again.
What about Amy? I want to stay with Sony. He's like, no, Christian, come on. And so they leave, and then they end up with Danny Boyle and Michael Fassbender. And I didn't think it was that bad of a movie, but it was not. Social Network.
I can't see Christian Bale as Steve Jobs.
It would have been interesting.
Like, I picture it as a weird like American Psycho Steve Jobs kind of thing. And then,
that would have been interesting.
Or
So anyway, that movie didn't make money, and maybe it would have made more if they gave $10 million to Fincher. Who knows? But we got Gone Girl out of it, and that was better.
Yeah, I liked Gone Girl.
So anyway, Silence finally happened, essentially. So after all this time,
shut up.
So he finally got the money to make it into a reality, and so he did make it into a reality finally, and it had, I think, like a 40 or 50 million. I think it was a $51 million budget, and what's interesting is I always thought it was basically that nobody wanted to make it. But if you look into it, there's actually this story of a lot of lawsuits and a lot of weird deals where Scorsese had made like 4 different contracts to have made the movie after, like, as his next movie after, like Gangs of New York, after The Departed, after this, after that, after Shutter Island, it was going to be the next one, after Hugo's going to be the next one. And then so he keeps making different movies in the meantime. And it's been this weird thing where he has said that my contract to make it was dependent on the fact that I was going to be able to raise the budget that I needed, that I felt that I needed in order to make it.
Yeah.
And not everyone agreed that the money that he felt he needed to make it was worth continuing to consider that contract null and void after making the movie.
Okay.
And so finally it ended up happening, and he's had to pay out a lot of money in order just to keep pushing off the movie because he feels that he didn't make it. So he's actually paid off over $3 million just to not direct it so he could go on to direct like The Departed and Shutter Island. Just to, because they're to the rights holders.
Yeah, he had to pay the hold on to the rights so he could direct it later whenever he's made enough money to make the movie.
Yeah,
but
so that he could raise the money.
Yeah.
And so it's this really hostile agreement.
Oh my gosh.
As if they're going to go off and get somebody else who's going to raise that much money to make it anyway.
Yeah.
But he wants more money than the average person, I
think they're just, they're using it as an opportunity to get money from him.
Yes,
And
well, surely.
money from him again.
Of course,
the movies he's making in the meantime.
And then on top of that, I was looking into it a little bit more, and there's legal battles over the screenplay because the rights holders had hired Nicholas Kazan, I think, to write the screenplay. Separately from that, Martin Scorsese and Jay Cox, who's a regular screenwriter for him, had been writing drafts of it. And there'd been separate money deals, essentially because there were separate screenplays and they hadn't even read each other's. And so now you've got this problem where also another guy had been hired in 2002 named Michael Gordon to write the screenplay that Kazan was going to polish. But then you still have Scorsese's like, no, it's just me and Cox who are working on it.
Okay.
And so then you have that going on. And so that's also caused a different lawsuit. Where Kazan wants $400,000 for writing services, and he wants another $200,000 for executive producing services that he had been promised, even though the movie didn't actually get made. And so it's just been this complete mess of it all. And right now, it looks like Jay Cox is the only person getting credited, even though it sounds like Scorsese had been writing it with him. And so it's just this big mess of lawsuits and craziness. So what I really admire about it all is this is a passion project for real.
Yeah, and he's been working on it for, 26 years?
Yeah.
Dang.
And so that's just insane.
Like longer? Yeah.
But it got made. And that leads to my last story of the week that I find just completely tragic. Terry Gilliam's been working on his passion project, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, for not 26 years, but at least probably 16 years.
Jeez. What is this about?
That is about a man who gets sent back in time or something, and then there's Don Quixote. He actually started filming it once with Johnny Depp, and
that could be fun, sure.
Basically, everything fell apart. The funding fell apart. The lead actor had back problems, and all their sets got destroyed by like monsoons when they started filming. So it completely fell apart. There's a great documentary about it.
Fell apart.
Called Lost in La Mancha, which is really good. And so recently, Gilliam has just decided for the rest of his life he's going to work to get this stupid movie made because he's really tired of it always falling apart. So there's been multiple different versions of it. One with Robert Duvall, one with I think John Hurt was going to be in it. Ooh. Duvall dropped out. John Hurt got cancer. Now it's finally coming together with Michael Palin and Adam Driver, and it was literally supposed to start filming this week. But his Portuguese producer did not get the money that he promised, so once again it's delayed, and it's just been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. Yeah. And so now it is. This has basically been the story every time it's about to start filming. Is the money fell apart? It's delayed again. Sorry,
we lost the money again.
Yeah, and so that's happening. So that's a dream project that was supposed to actually, I think, premiere at Cannes next year. So at the Cannes Film Festival,
that one.
And it sounds like that's not going to happen. So there's one. The movie gods have decreed that one long gestating passion project can go forward while the other
think once it
cannot.
Gestates too long, it's been there, and it
can only gestate.
It turns into a malignant tumor at that point.
But this is 10 years less, so maybe he just needs to hit that 26-year mark, and then it'll be okay.
Once you get to 26, the studio starts to pity you enough that they just kind of let it happen.
All right, let's get your predictions for next week, and then let's go to our correspondent piece.
I'm still not ready for that. Okay, so upcoming movies. I think Girl on the Train might bust it into like 2 or 3, but other than that. What else have we got at number 1? I think Miss Peregrine's going to stick at number 1.
With how much?
Ooh. Over the next week, I'll give them another $30 million.
Whoa, that's huge.
Well,
no drop?
No. Well, I'm thinking like
next weekend.
Yeah, that's just over this weekend. What they made, the $30 million, right?
We're not talking to the cumes though. We're talking just what's it going to make next weekend.
I don't know. I don't know how much movies make in 3 days.
Dude, should we just go to our correspondent piece?
That's just not like
that's
just not a thing that
that's what your prediction is.
Well, I was trying to.
I will tell you this.
I think it's going to stick at Miss Peregrine number 1.
A 50% drop would be surprising.
Okay, Deepwater Horizon's going to stick at number 2, and then number 3 was going to be whatever that other movie. Girl on the Train. There we go.
We got to work on this feature. Part of it.
I don't know how I'm supposed to predict the exact numbers they're going to get. And then it's like if it's by the week or by not the week or by just.
We'll talk about this. We'll figure out a better plan for this going forward. Okay. So we're going to go to a piece now. Well, actually, we're going to go to a break. We have a little ad break, and then we'll come back with Kim Jahanian's piece, "The State of Paramount." asking what if Spielberg was right.
We are brought to you today by the Supernauts, pop culture's junk drawer. Head over to thesupernauts.com for the latest movie news, editorials, reviews, podcasts, and comic strips such as Studio Head. Debate, discuss, geek out. Head over today.
Hello, listeners of Squad Rant. I'm sorry, 5 Quadrant. Here is my little contribution for this episode. Remember a couple of years ago when Steven Spielberg, with some support from his old pal George Lucas, were kind of playing something of doomsday prophets when they stated that the film industry would eventually suffer some sort of an implosion after one of these big 250 million mega budget movies would go crashing to the ground. And everybody sort of snubbed him off. Even more so when about a year later Jurassic World, which was produced by Spielberg, made just about all the money in the world. Well, one tends to forget that Spielberg has been a part of the studio system for about 5 decades and might actually have some inkling of what the hell he's talking about. As there are some first signals of a scenario not unlike what he described, having a chance of actually happening. And in one of the original legendary Big Six studios, no less. In the past few weeks, I've been reporting in my own weekly news column about some strange goings-on at Paramount Pictures. There was the so-called salary dispute that halted the pre-production of the 6th Mission Impossible movie for about a month. Then came news that the studio is already planning to make a write-down on a $150 million budgeted animation/live-action sci-fi comedy from the director of Ice Age. And the movie won't even open until January. Then they moved the sequel to The Ring, one of their big hits, from a suitable Halloween release date to a week and a half before Valentine's Day, because who the hell wants to watch horror movies in Halloween, right? All in all, these might seem like some isolated incidents, but I came somewhat curious, so I did some checking. And what I found was a bit unnerving, as it turns out that during this year, Paramount has really only had one movie that could be considered a sizable hit. And that movie was 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that was released in March. The film made $108 million on a $50 million budget. Now, I know, that doesn't sound like that much, but you have to consider that 10 Cloverfield Lane was one of these Bad Robot Productions' secret movies, where they didn't even start advertising it sooner than a couple of weeks before the premiere, so the marketing budget was probably not that big. But let's look at some of the other releases that Paramount had this year and how they did. There was the Michael Bay film 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, which made $69 million worldwide on a budget of $50 million. There was Zoolander 2, which made $56 million on a budget of $50 million. There was the Tina Fey war correspondence comedy Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, which made $24.9 million on a budget of $35 million. There was Everybody Wants Some, a Richard Linklater film that made $4.6 million on a budget of $10 million. There was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, which made $245 million on a budget of $135 million. There was Star Trek Beyond, which made $335 million on a budget of $185 million. And the latest was the Ben-Hur remake, which has so far made $87 million worldwide on a budget of $100 million. And you have to remember that these budget figures don't have the marketing costs in them. If you add those, you can pretty much see that it has not been a good year. especially compared to some other big studios of the Big Six, like Universal, Warner Brothers, and Disney, who have been having some pretty great record-breaking years recently. I guess the big one that Paramount was kind of betting on this year was the third Star Trek movie, and honestly, it cannot be viewed as a raving success. I'd say, adding the marketing costs, it might have pretty much broke even, if that. So how did it come to this? What happened? Well, let's take a look at the studio's biggest hits from the previous years. Let's say from 2007 to last year. There's Shrek the Third, Transformers, Iron Man, Kung Fu Panda, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull, Madagascar 2, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Star Trek, Iron Man 2, Shrek Forever After, How to Train Your Dragon, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Transformers 3, Kung Fu Panda 2, Madagascar 3, World War Z, Star Trek Into Darkness, Transformers 4, Age of Extinction, Interstellar, which was a co-production with Warner Brothers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. So, I asked what happened. Well, a couple of things. First off, Disney happened. You see, Disney bought Marvel Studios. I think a lot of people tend to forget that 4 of the first 5 Marvel Cinematic Universe films were distributed by Paramount. And just as the production was beginning on The Avengers, which was the one that finally broke that $1 billion barrier, well, the Mouse House threw some serious cash in, and there went Marvel. Then Disney also bought Lucasfilm, and there went the Indiana Jones series, which has always been a big ticket seller for Paramount. And finally, DreamWorks, and probably more importantly, DreamWorks Animation didn't renew their contract with Paramount and instead joined up with Universal. So that's 3 pretty significant blows right there. I mean, that's a lot of franchises from that list that have now gone bye-bye. So if you take those out from the top earner list, what have you got left? Transformers and Mission Impossible, and that's pretty much it. So, considering that, I think it's even more worrisome that the studio has already caused a production delay for the 6th Mission Impossible film. Let's not forget that Tom Cruise has pretty much been the studio's golden boy since the days of Top Gun. So why would you start causing trouble with him? One can only speculate. I mean, the official reason was salary dispute, but I get the feeling that the studio maybe doesn't like the fact that Cruise is now also a headliner in another big possible franchise for another studio, playing the role of Van Helsing in Universal's Universal Monsters universe. Now, I don't pretend that I know anything about running a studio, but if I was, I certainly wouldn't risk pissing off the producer and lead of one of the only 2 big franchises I have left. So let's speculate. What if? Now, Mission 6 has already been delayed and certainly doesn't even have an official release date yet, and it most certainly won't make it in time for 2017. Now, what if the unthinkable happens and the 5th Transformers movie also flops completely? I know it's a very big if and highly unlikely if, but you know, the news of its weird plot lines regarding King Arthur and Nazi-occupied England and whatnot suggests that it certainly looks to be the most offbeat of the series yet. Or what if it gets delayed and doesn't make it in time for next summer? I mean, what else does the studio have set for the next year? Well, there's the sci-fi comedy that was already issued as of right down. There's the 3rd XXX movie with a returning star Vin Diesel. There's the Ring sequel, unless they change the release date a couple of more times, because this current release date is about the fourth it has. I mean, the film has been finished since the late 2015, I believe. Then there's God Particle, which is another mystery box sci-fi movie from Bad Robot, which it may have chance for profit, especially if it's done at similar cheap price as 10 Cloverfield Lane. Then there's the Ghost in the Shell live-action adaptation, but that already has pretty much the wrath of the fans of the original all over it. Then there's the Baywatch movie starring Dwayne Johnson, which might make some money, maybe. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there is a sequel to World War Z that had a predetermined summer release slot for the next year, but the latest news of that is that it doesn't even currently have a director, and the production hasn't even properly started, so I wouldn't bet on that. And now, nothing very earth-shattering there, no? So you could almost say that Paramount's only chance for a hit next year is Transformers 5. Now, that's some pretty high-risk gambling right there. I mean, they most certainly can't take another year like this year in a row. So, to recall the first chapter of this column, what we have here is a studio has been completely dependent on mega-budget franchises and has lost so many of them. So, if the one that they have left fails, then what are you gonna do? Sell to the Chinese, perhaps? I mean, Transformers 4, it was a big moneymaker in China. And I know that the last two Mission Impossible movies have already been kind of co-financed by the Chinese. So could it be that we're seeing one of the legendary Big Six studios kind of ripe to be sold to the Chinese? I mean, Legendary Pictures was already sold to the Chinese this year, so what's stopping from that happening again? So to return to my original point, Steven Spielberg might have had a point there.
That piece was brought to us by Kim Johannan.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Yes. You can find more of his writing at thesupernauts.com.
Yes.
Another one of our sponsors for the week. Also, he runs Studio Head, the comic strip. So check that out. We'll be back next Monday talking more about...
We'll have more numbers for you, more movies to talk about.
More movies and numbers. We'll have it all for you.
What more would you want?
And be sure to send us any of your thoughts at contact@FatherSonProductionsLLC.com.
Yeah.
Any last words that you have for us?
No.
Spread
the word.
Get
people listening.
Yes, share this show, because we there's not a lot of other shows that do this kind of analysis of even weekly box office.
And if you like it, let us know. Let us know what you want. What we can
like us on
about.
Facebook.
Yeah.
We have a Twitter also.
Do you have anything interesting for us to talk about? We like to react to stuff.
We like to not have to do the prep if you can do the prep for us. So I mean, by all means, if you want to do some prep,
our job is your job.
We all have the job.
Yeah.
It's a job for everybody involved. So,
but
I'm Tom Noblock.
And I'm Chris Fago.
And have a great week. Be sure to come back for more movie talk. See some movies, too.
We'll see you next Monday.
We'll see.
We'll hear
you'll
you
hear us next Monday. And I feel like I need some...
I don't know. I never know how to actually end the thing.
I never know either. Yeah. But this has been 5 Quadrant of Father Son Productions. Our first podcast. So you can check out other stuff. Father Son Productions. Our first official Father Son Productions podcast of the company.
Okay.
So, also,
second
I'm going to end this on a little plug. You can check out Adaptation, a movie that we made, is on Amazon Prime.
Yes, it is.
So Adaptation, it's Adaptation, but with an O.
If you go onto our Facebook page, we have posted all after there.
It's on Facebook or FatherSonProductionsLLC.com. So
give it a watch.
Once again, this has been 5 Quadrant. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Yes, see you later.